is Rumor, and today I thought I would share with you all my tarot origin story via my original tarot journal, which according to the first entry, I bought in 2012. Yet it has somehow come to look like something Indiana Jones or Rupert Giles would consult for clues. I don't know. It has not aged well. But in some ways, as I'm looking at the decks currently on my tarot table this month, they kind of tell a bit of a story of my tarot origins too, because the Wild Unknown was one of my very, very, very first decks. I had started out with the Rider-Waite-Smith, but I want to say maybe this was like the first deck I got to follow that. And then I had purchased the Connected and Free Oracle to match. Why don't I just show a few? I think maybe it was before the Animal Spirit was out, or I just hadn't purchased that. And so this seemed like the next closest match for Wild Unknown. Just some similarity in art style there. And anyway, it probably wouldn't have been much later that I got the Lightseers Tarot, which it's really pretty paired with these decks as well. And I just like the vibrancy of it. It's feeling right for summer. And I have been feeling a desire to reconnect with some early decks of mine that have been sitting neglected. And yeah, I still love them a lot. But anyways, back to my origin story here. Let me tip this down so you can see this gorgeous, gorgeous tome here. I mean, seriously, like, this makes me feel like such an old fart. But anyway, I actually was flipping through this the other day because, like, I unearthed it. I had not looked at it in a while, and I actually found an entry in here where I journaled about my tarot origins. So I think I'll just start with that, if I may, and I can kind of tour guide you through this crazy journal accordingly. So give me 1 second as I flip to find that page. So not to give away the contents of the Little Red Tarot course, but this is something that I journaled in response to the opening prompt. This is a paid-for course, so again, I don't want to be giving too much away, but this was a free-for-all response to the general question of what is tarot? And I think perhaps I did this course, yeah, it was 2018. So several years after first starting out. But in looking back to when I would have first gotten into the tarot, this is what I had to say about it 5 years ago. I first came across tarot probably in TV shows and film. The cards always looked so mysterious, eccentric, and pretty. And so finally, when I found myself not gainfully employed, I started to take the time to understand what it was really all about. And that's all my initial intention was. I just wanted to finally get what it was and how it was used exactly. So I first started out with this journal to take notes on what I found online, and eventually I invested in a book too, but just a used one for such a casual interest. Ooh, and I can share said book with you. One moment. Okay, so that used book would have been this, Tarot Plain and Simple, Anthony Lewis. And this was the Robin Wood Tarot that features in it. And so I found this to be a good introduction. Starting out with keywords, situation and advice, people it might be associated with, and then also reversed meanings. And you also just get information on the numerology as well. So that was really helpful for me to learn as a newbie. So anyway, okay, so I invested in a book too, but just a used one for such a casual interest. After several months of sporadic card a day and readings and logging individual cards, I petered out. So I can show you where I was logging those original card a day. Well, here's where my tarot journey began, where I was taking some notes off some online source probably, learning about the 22 trumps and the 40 pips and the 16 court that add up to 78 cards. Yeah, just either what the cards were itself, some history, the psychology behind it. I've always been interested in Carl Jung, and so obviously that really fascinated me with it too. But then these were my original entries starting like January 2012, so 11 and a half years ago, where I would do the card pull and then just kind of catalog like what I had done that day to see if there was any association with it. I wasn't really doing readings and doing full interpretations. It really was just a log of what had happened so that I could gradually start to see like, okay, well, this is what happened. How is that reflected in that card? I can see where I drew some clarifier cards. And at this point, I didn't even own a tarot deck. I was doing these card pulls using a tarot app. Which my old iPad is definitely not charged right now, so I can't show it at the moment, but if I can get that fired up, maybe I can edit that in, what that app looked like. But anyways, it was just a thing where I could just like tap and pull a card digitally. So after several months of these sporadic card a day and readings and logging individual cards, I petered out. I think it was probably my subsequent Buffy obsession years later that rekindled my interest as I watched beloved characters use cards casually or in a ritual. And I do remember Drusilla had her tarot cards, which were not the traditional ones, but I would love to have the deck that she had. And then Willow and Tara would have their cards out as well at the Magic Box, or when Willow did the enjoining spell at the end of season 4. So I finally cracked open the Rider-Waite deck that my sister had gifted me on request during my first phase. So I think that was Christmas 2013. My sister gave me my first deck, and it was because I requested it, because I completely bought into the superstition that you aren't supposed to buy your own tarot deck. And not that I really believed there was something to that, but I kind of didn't want to mess with it because, again, I was first getting to know tarot. I was still kind of like afraid of it, as many people who don't understand tarot are. But let me go get that original deck. And gosh, I didn't prepare for this video at all to think to have these little supplements on hand. But yeah, my first RWS in all its garishly colored glory. It was great. It was very exciting to have it in my hands. I loved the feel of it, and then I could finally appreciate the aesthetics of the shuffle. Just to continue with my little saga here. So my sister gifted me my first deck, and then I purchased the oversized version that I saw on TV because I noticed that. I think it was Tara at the Magic Box had like these big cards, and I wanted that, so I got them. From there, it grew into more consistent and complex readings incorporating oracle cards, and now I own a few decks. A few decks. Yes, I could say the same today. I own a few decks of each to compare, contrast, enhance. I scour YouTube, but Biddy Tarot has probably been my most consistent go-to to learn tarot until now with Little Red Tarot, because frankly, the course is way more affordable and Biddy offers tons of free online resources. And that is true. And I wouldn't consider Biddy the go-to necessarily, although I will say I had gotten this older version of the Ultimate Guide. I think it's since been republished, but I do actually still go to this a lot. I really like this book. As much as I was turned off by like the expense if you actually wanted to take a Biddy Tarot course, and I would get frustrated too. There would be live like workshops, and then maybe after 5 minutes of getting some valuable information, it would kind of turn into an infomercial for the courses. So I don't mean to disparage Biddy Tarot, but it's just one of those things to kind of be wary of. It seems like you're constantly, being bombarded to purchase this product, and it comes at a high price, higher than what I wanted to spend. But that being said, it's why did I stop on the devil? I don't want to be on that one. There was, though, a forum online that you could also get a subscription to, and I did do that for a time and found it helpful. Like, there were just different discussion threads, and which, of course, you can find elsewhere online. There was also the opportunity to request and offer free readings to practice on each other, basically. And so I took someone up on that once and just kind of gave it like a safe space to be able to try out reading for others, or seeing what it's like to get a reading yourself and see what someone else's reading style was like. And so anyways, that was an early part of my journey, this Biddy Tarot. But anyway, I like this book. You get the key words, some quotations that like capture the essence of it, the description of the traditional artwork, but then you get the general meaning, how it might apply to career, work, and finances, personality types reflected in the card. If you were using it for like relationship readings, spirituality, well-being, and health, and then ideas of how card combinations can work. And that was maybe my first exposure to that idea. If you have the two side by side, how they like augment each other's meanings. So that was neat. And then there's reversed meanings too, and also reversed card combinations. So it's a very accessible book. I like it a lot. And I mean, I felt the same way about this too, but this probably is the one that I still go to the most, if I'm honest. Even though I have gone on to resources such as Rachel Pollack's 78 Degrees of Wisdom, classic, Annabelle Wen's Holistic Tarot, which is talk about tomes, very comprehensive. And then for a Marseille angle, Untold Tarot, fabulous resource. And I don't know if I end up mentioning it in here, but actually 2 earlier books before the ones that I just showed and after these, Melissa Sanova's Kitchen Table Tarot I thought was fantastic. And then Bakara Winter's WTF is Tarot. I really liked these. Again, speaking of accessible, Melissa Sanova is hilarious. She has a really frank and funny voice that just infuses this book, and she gives some anecdotes, and yeah, it's cool. And then this one, it's been such a long time since I cracked this one open. But yeah, it's fun. She swears. But just kind of going through, and again, another like distinctive voice, and rather anecdotal, and just like very casual. Like you can tell it's coming from a particular voice, a particular point of view, and I just found it helpful. I mean, the more that we kind of gather this stuff, and we're picking up on that too as we're exploring YouTube and other sources, everyone is just giving their own viewpoint, and there are ways in which that overlaps with traditional meanings, but then some of the nuance that gets added really is informed by our own perspectives, our own frames of reference. And the more we explore that, we can kind of collect those thoughts from each other, but then ultimately are drawing from our own, whether it's through experience or just like the intuitive hits that we're getting, to bring the meaning to the card. So anyways, started very basic, ended up layering all these other things, but it just goes to show how, I don't think we ever really stop accumulating these tarot resources as well as we think we know the cards. There's always another angle at which to look at them. Okay, so then, and now that I think of it, it was my recent crystal obsession, because I do love my crystals, that led me to Hibiscus Moon. She's kind of a quirky, fun online resource. I just enjoyed going through the blog and videos early in my crystal journey, which could be another story for another day. But yeah, so before I accumulated decks, I accumulated crystals and just absolutely went down that rabbit hole. But then Hibiscus Moon led me to Biddy. So I feel like maybe there was an interview that happened at one point, and that's how I became aware of Biddy Tarot. So I guess my excitement at seeing two metaphysical interests converge is what really cemented this as a serious study for me. I'm determined to know this. So long story short here, I started studying tarot, just kind of dipping my toe into it in 2012, and it wasn't really until 2018 here that these last 5 years that I really started getting serious about it and making it more of a daily and very meaningful practice, taking it from just a curiosity because I kept seeing it show up in movies and TV, and I just wanted to know, what is that all about? How does someone know from looking at that card that that's what this means? Where are they getting that meaning from? Because when I look at that, I don't know what I'm supposed to see. And so that was just fascinating to me, and it was just wanting to put a curiosity to rest and learn if it was something really to be feared, and obviously learned that it is not. And then also just wondering how it worked. And I don't think any of us have really found that answer, but got my theories on it. It just kind of went from that casual interest to something I really wanted to continue for the longer term. So initially, I just wanted to do readings for myself as self-reflection and ultimately for others as a party trick. Apologies to all tarot readers that I use that expression. I mean, that is just kind of how you look at it in the beginning, possibly, or at least I did. Or again, people who don't know tarot and understand it, it's perceived that way. So I don't mean to make light of it there, but that was kind of my attitude at the time as I was first getting acquainted. But more and more, I want to seriously be able to help others with their questions. If not professionally, then at least seriously among friends and family. I think tarot is magic in the way love is, in the way synchronicity works. I believe in meaningful coincidence, so even if the cards are random, they will, I don't know, I think I skipped the word, maybe reflect to me and the querent what we know to be true deep down. We all have the answers we seek. We already know them on an unconscious or subconscious level, or even a conscious one. But we don't like to admit it to ourselves. Our egos make us afraid and resistant. So the tarot peels away at our conscious layers so that we listen to intuition instead. It's not always what we want to hear, but that's how we grow. Ultimately, I see tarot now as more psychological than anything, in keeping with Carl Jung's theories of consciousness and archetypes. But fostering this deep inner reflection and awareness and compelling us to take ownership of what we want in life, to take action on what we want to manifest, inevitably makes it a magical spiritual experience of or for ourselves as we speak with our soul. It tells of a potential future that our free will can change. Psychics and mediums can take these readings further. They can reach levels of specificity that I don't expect to attain. Sorry, I'm omitting entire words here, but that's how my brain works. But I do hope to enhance my intuition through tarot and read enough in the cards to give quality, actionable advice, even when it's a bit general. I want to be able to see the story clearly and articulate my translation well. I want to have a consistent relationship with my cards and know which deck best serves which reading, which decks, including Oracle, work best together, and which spreads will be my go-tos for which situations. I want to build my confidence reading for others and myself to the point where I could consider doing this professionally. I think my main challenges are getting past my ego, getting grounded and out of my over-analytical brain, maintaining the discipline to practice regularly, and get past my fears of being inadequate and wrong. So, sorry, I had the skylight open overhead off and on because it's been very warm here in the UK and I don't have air conditioning, and now there is a fine dusting of organic matter that just sprinkles on my tarot table now and then, no matter how much I clean it off. But yeah, in response to that, that's something I wrote 5 years ago. So now I would say, yes, I absolutely still regard tarot in a very psychological way, but I would say just as much so, I do regard it spiritually as well. I think at first I was treading very cautiously and just keeping it kind of in the realm of an ink blot test, because I probably did still have fears of like how cards could be used for spirit communication and things like that. And I didn't really like want to open any portals to anything. So that was like my guarded self. But in the years since, just expanding and deepening the practice, I have certainly come to embrace it spiritually, and I like to receive that guidance if it's coming from my guides, my higher self. But again, I also will appreciate it from the psychological standpoint as well. I always figure that at the very least, that can be an explanation for how it ends up being so effective. But I mean, we all know how uncanny the readings can be. So it certainly seems like there's more to it than just that, than us being able to look at it and wedge a meaning into it. I do feel like there is some sort of larger synchronicity that's going on. And at any rate, just to share a bit more of the early days from this, well, I showed my initial notes, but when I was also studying cards one by one, I took to, oh, look at this. Here are my notes on reversed cards. Where does meaning come from? The unconscious part of ourselves that is aware of the divine source of meaning. It acts as a wise advisor who knows us well. It understands what we need and leads us in the direction we need to go. The soul, the superconscious, the higher self, the inner guide. I don't know where I got that. I didn't cite my source there, but here I did reference learntarot.com. I know that was a website that I went to now and then as well when my tarot practice was predominantly an online digital one. And again, before this like physical deck came in my hands. So I had reserved a page for each card. And I remember at night after my husband would go to bed, like he's already an old fogey falling asleep at like 9. And I'm a night owl. So I remember like have the TV on in the background and I would use my tarot app to draw a card. And then I would literally draw it. So whatever card came up for that day, I would note it down here, note what happened in the day, and then at the end of the day, I would actually sit with it and make my own little sketchings of it to like help me get acquainted with the specific imagery and symbology in there. And then based on the sources I was using, whether it was websites, tarot apps, this Anthony Lewis book, I would compile keywords and then take notes on meanings as far as just like the general description of the card and situation it relates to, advice, predictions, reversed keywords, and then left some space at the bottom for my personal observation. So whenever I pulled this card, I would note how my experience that day related to this. So my goal then was not a successful one, as you can see. Clearly I petered out on this process. But my goal at the very beginning was to cross-reference from all these sources so that I could have a page for each card. Look at my double there. I'm not an artist. I did always kind of like my tower card though. That's not too shabby. I used a not reversible, erasable pen, I remember, for these images, so I could always erase and touch things up. But yeah, the goal was to have a page with these comprehensive cross-reference sources, just thinking that if I did do readings for other people, then this would be my go-to. And I could lay out the cards for them and then just flip through this and go and consult and look for the advice and prediction. So I never thought it was going to be something I would actually commit to memory or rely on my own intuition to interpret. I really thought it meant like going with what guidebooks said. And so yes, this was meant to be my crutch. But I think basically what happened, I don't think it was just like a lack of motivation being why I petered out on this. I just think that after doing it more and realizing it could be more of an intuitive practice, and I must say, this Wild Unknown deck really opened me up to that. Once I finally got to the point where I had physical decks in hand and I was starting to explore what else was out there and supplement with Oracle and start watching TarotTube and seeing other people's spreads and methods. Kelly at The Truth and Story was the very first YouTube channel that I subscribed to and faithfully watched. And it was solely her for a time. But I just remember that this deck really opened me up from that traditional RWS imagery. And I felt like even before I understood what the traditional meanings were for the cards, before I had anything committed to memory, this was finally allowing me to read with them from that intuitive space. And then further down the road, when I did commit more to memory and I understood more so the conventional meanings, then of course able to layer that in as well. But I never lost that sense of how valuable my own personal instinctive like insights were. So I no longer felt like I had to have something like this to just be my go-to to flip to. You know, I was basically getting better at reading them and intuiting the messages. And yes, I could go to a guidebook for enhanced meaning, but I didn't think I needed to take up the time to do this because plus I was also expanding in what guidance I was using. I wasn't just using these sources anymore, as I shared before. I was branching out, to other books as well. And so it's just sort of like in the moment what I feel like I want to go to if I want to check on the meaning or the deck's own guidebook, right? So there's so much at our disposal. But flipping back to this page, I couldn't be bothered to finish this yet either. But again, it just I completed stuff as it came up, as I was drawing the cards. So it was not in any specific order. It was just sort of coming up at random. And so if I didn't finish this, it was mainly because I just hadn't pulled cards that were a 6 yet, or a 7, or a page, Queen, King. But if ever I pulled a card and it was like a pip, a court, then I would go through and I think predominantly citing this source, this Tarot Plain Simple, I would take notes on the element and the numerology, the characteristics accordingly, and of the courts. But yeah, I mean, it kind of kills me to see all these blank pages, but I feel like I've always held on to this as something that I could always go back to it. And I feel like if I did, I think it would still be fun to sketch out the pictures. But I think instead of like doing this, where I'm just pulling from all these sources, this space could be used just more so for what I've kind of like compiled in me noggin. What my own understanding has come to it. I could get anecdotal about it as it applies to me. So I feel like I might revisit this someday, but I just have not been called to do that quite yet. But yeah, let's see what else I had in here. There's our 3. 8 of Cups. I didn't do bad on that one either, huh? Oh, there's that guy with that shit-eating grin. Any more? Oh, Eight of Swords. That one, of course I drew that one. That one loves to come for me. Jeez. Oh, I like this Three of Pentacles. Look at me, just like giving myself props. Okay, so anyways, I think I'm getting to the end here. So I noted the Golden Dawn titles that must have come up somewhere in my research. Oh, here was a Biddy Tarot webinar in which I had notes to take until it became an infomercial. And then I started doing, chronicling my spreads. This was like the first time. Oh, and yes, okay, did I have questions about the future of my writing? Yes. Do I still have questions about this now? Yes. I will just suck it up, and if you're able to read anything on this, I guess go for it. But this is dated May 2018, so this was a while ago, so situation has changed, but I would have my question, my spread, my deck, and then what I would do first, I would map out the spread and I would label the cards, and then first I would make these notes before, because again, I didn't really know all the cards yet. I hadn't committed traditional meanings to memory yet. So just looking at the imagery, I just wanted to know what I saw on the card. So this was like giving my intuition some space. And then I would come in and tie the reading together. And I would just kind of free write how I was seeing it. And so I did several entries like that, trying out different spreads. Oh, this is when I discovered Benebell. And I took notes on her, I think she calls it the Edda method, which I was fascinated with. And there were a few things that I saw of hers that I ended up kind of integrating, took elements from each, like combined into something to kind of, taking from her, inspired by her, maybe making it more of my own. More notes from Benebell. I guess more questions. And then, so then this is when I got into, finally in 2018, this course that I took with Little Red Tarot. And it was awesome. I know the course has since been revamped. So if it still exists, I'm hoping it's still offered, because I imagine there would be a lot that would stay the same, but I could not say exactly. So I can't vouch for exactly what the current one is, but all I can say is that the original one was awesome. And one of the activities was to come up with my own spread, and that's when I came up with the Slayer spread, which I've now shared a few times at this channel because I love it. Like, it is actually a usable spread. I use this all the time. It's a really good one for, like, if you're just wanting to take action, not so much unpacking a situation, but like you kind of know what needs to be done, or you're seeking what needs to be done and what action you need to take towards that. But anyways, oh look, then I started studying some astrology. Oh, I had a page ready for geomancy. Oh, Lenormand. So it just kind of became this catch-all, and oh my God, this next page. Well, first of all, as you can see, from the tarot journey, it expanded into these other things, and I've done rune study, and I just wanted to know all of the things. And so it just really like blossomed into something huge that I'm still so inspired by and intrigued by and curious about, sometimes overwhelmed by, because there's just so much. But I'm just going to give a quick flash of these next pages because I wish I were kidding, but this is how I log my decks. Like when I get new decks and I write them down, and if I rehome them, I just kind of scribble them out. There are people who maintain such nice Excel spreadsheets, probably dated, probably how much they paid for it, the date it was rehomed, and to who, this is my system. Yeah, moving on. Okay, and so then this is where it gets weird because I do this with my writing journals when I'm brainstorming a story. It started to happen where I would start brainstorming a story from the beginning of a journal, and then that would still be a work in progress when I would start working on another story. And so, because I was still working on the first story, I didn't know how many more pages I wanted or needed for that process. And so I took to starting from the back for the subsequent story and like just work my way backwards. And so then if I just meet in the middle at some point. So I started, because I was interested in crystals, I started taking like crystal notes in the very back here. And then I started doing crystal meditations. And so then those were like early notes and thoughts as I was learning how to like cleanse crystals and charge them and meditate with them. I would journal about it, and I would journal going backwards like this. So then I got to this point. So anyway, that is the sloppy, not so pretty origin story of my tarot journey, at least in its earlier days, and you know what it entails now, what I'm up to these days and have expanded into is more so chronicled here now at my channel. And I've only been sharing that for the last year and some months, but that's like the best way now to keep up with basically what I'm up to. But this was really funny for me to look through, and there are entries I think I will share in future with you, just for fun. But wow, the ring light that my phone is connected to just completely disconnected from the stand. So my equipment is crap. And this is all part of my tarot journey now as a tarot tuber. So sorry for the shaky footage in this outro, but just let me know in the comments, how did you first get into tarot, and what are some of the hallmarks of your journey thus far? What were some of the tools and resources that you consulted early on, and what do you continue to find really valuable now, or even more valuable, something you've discovered more recently that has superseded what you might have relied on from the beginning? It's just such an amazing way for us to grow, right? And to keep track of that. So I think between the journaling, the videos, I'm so glad that this is something that I've been recording, because it has honestly become something so meaningful to me, far more than just satisfying a curiosity as just a little hobby. It's not something that I do professionally. It's still not something I'm seeking to do professionally. I do enjoy just reading for myself or doing casual readings for friends and family, but it has just become such an integral part of my life, again, on that psychological and spiritual level. And it's such a guide for me day by day. It helps me get out of my head. It helps me unpack my busy brain. It gives me this wonderful opportunity here in the community to connect with others and learn from you. And so I can't stress it enough. Please leave in the comments any insights that you would like to share, because I do seek to learn from all of you. And thank you in the meantime for your time and indulging my thoughts, whether you learn anything from me or not. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.